probably the first thing that you notice when you look at this Land Rover is that it looks like a series. And it's a very early Land Rover 110. It's an 83, which is actually the first year of the 110. And it's got some unique features that the later Defenders never had, which makes it look a little bit more like a series, and that's these split doors and the galvanized cappings here. So it's kind of a best of both worlds scenario where if you like the look of the series, but you like the way that the Defender drives with the coil springs and more modern drivetrains, this is like a perfect situation for the vintage look and the modern driving experience. And it's even painted in a color that was available in '83, pastel green, and this color was even available during the time of the Series 1s, so even going back into the 50s. So it's got a really nice vintage look to it, but yet it has the fully modern drivetrain, which I'll show you now. We've installed the Land Rover 300 TDI, which is a mid to late 90s turbo diesel, and this is really the only drivetrain that we offer in the Defender because it's the drivetrain that we're the most familiar with. So the original engine was a 2.25 liter gas engine, which we're also very familiar with. That's the engine that comes in the series. But that engine would just be a little too underpowered in a 110 like this. It's fine for around town driving, and it's great in the series, which are a lot lighter, but in a vehicle like this 110, it just really wouldn't be that great on the highway. So we opted to go with this later turbo diesel, which is fantastic. And the best part about these 300 TDIs is that there's still full parts availability. So if you ever have an issue with the engine, it's not going to be impossible to find parts for, like say the older 2.5 turbo diesels from the 80s. So the other thing you probably notice is all the galvanizing, and this has our galvanizing package that we always do on the series vehicles, which involves galvanizing everything that we could unbolt from the bottom of the body. So if you look down here, you'll see the frame is galvanized, the shock towers are galvanized, all the bracketry that holds the body together is galvanized. And this is really important because wherever an aluminum panel meets a steel panel, you have the possibility of galvanic corrosion. So the two dissimilar metals could react and create a situation where the aluminum starts corroding and bubbling, and that's usually evident with bubbling paint, and there's really no way to stop that once it starts. So the best thing to do is to galvanize all the steel panels that you can, because the layer of zinc will isolate the aluminum and there won't be any galvanic corrosion between the two metals. So the other thing we did on this vehicle was add a really heavy-duty bumper and brush guard, and you can hear how solid that is, because the vehicle is going to a part of the country where there could be animal strikes, animals on the road, and you want to protect the aluminum body panels. The brush guard is a really nice unit from Brown Church, London. This is the same type of brush guard that was used on the Camel Trophy expeditions from the 80s and 90s. And it's also the best looking brush guard for the Defender. And it doesn't have the wraparound pieces that the NAS Land Rover brush guards did, where if you hit something with it, it ends up damaging the fender by creasing it. This is by far the most robust brush guard out there and the best looking. So a few other things we did. We added some Toyo tires, so some Toyo M55 tires, also because the vehicle's going to a fairly remote part of the country where you don't want to be getting flats driving on rough dirt roads. These are certainly one of the most durable tires out there. Another thing that was added to the vehicle are TrueTrack differentials front and rear. So TrueTracks are limited slip differentials, and with this vehicle being an all-wheel drive, there's really no downside to having the TrueTrack limited slip. If it were a rear-wheel drive, you could have issues on ice sliding out, but on an all-wheel drive, there is literally no downsides to the True Tracks, and it drives just like it would with open differentials. So it's a really nice compromise to gain more traction without going to the complexity of ARB air lockers. So then, yeah, moving around the vehicle, I'll show you the inside. So take a look inside. This vehicle has a brand new interior. These are really comfortable seats, and the materials are certainly fitting for an early Defender. Traditional tweed and leather. It's not too over the top, and it really suits the vehicle and the color of the vehicle. And you could see we kept the original dash. And these are by far the nicest looking dashes. The later Puma dashes, to me, they're just too busy and cluttered and kind of full of switches and buttons. And this dash is just so simple. You could see there's no distractions. So the middle row also received leather seats in the same chestnut leather as the front seats. The same galvanizing treatment that we've done to the outside of the vehicle has carried through. And we've done all of the brackets, all the seatbelt brackets, anything that mounts to the aluminum has been galvanized. Even the check straps down there have been galvanized. So also continuing with kind of the utilitarian theme of the vehicle, we have these nice canvas door pouches here, and continuing with the series theme, we've actually used a series door handle instead of the black plastic Defender door handles. So we've given it a little bit of backdating there just to give it a more vintage feel. Now around the back of the vehicle, we have the same door pouch on the rear door, and we have chestnut leather jump seats in the back. And you can see we also have a modern Defender headliner instead of the old style one, which is almost like a wool, like a fibery wool. This is a nice smooth vinyl, and we have the two interior lights. All right, so now let's start it up and we'll take it for a drive. So if this was a colder day, you would want to use the glow plugs first, and you do that by turning the key just past the accessory position, but before the start position. And you would just hold that for 20 seconds or so. But since it's summer, we'll go ahead and start it right up and take the parking brake off. And this does have an R380 5-speed transmission, which is a different shift pattern, reverses in a different place than the LT77. So we've changed the knob to the R380 knob. And I also want to mention that the transmission has had larger bearings added to it and has had a high ratio fifth gear installed so that the vehicle can drive over 65 miles an hour on the highway without kind of starting to kind of tack out, get the revs a little too high. These really weren't meant to go over 65 miles an hour. So the high ratio fifth gear is the same that was taken from a V8 transmission like an NAS 90 would have had, which obviously can go a lot more than 65. Okay, here we go. So the diesel isn't exactly quiet, but it's also not obnoxiously loud. So you can certainly hear some tire noise and some wind noise and a little bit of the turbo, but it's not so loud that it's deafening like the older diesels from the 80s were certainly obnoxiously loud and underpowered. So this one moves along quite nice. So we have some vent flaps here on the dash to open to get a little bit of airflow. And the controls are fairly simple. So you have your turn signals on the left, just like a normal vehicle. And that's also where the horn is. On this side, you have your wipers and washers. So you can see how the washers work. And you have your normal 2-speed wipers. The headlight switch is on this side, so you have your headlights here and your gauge lights go on when you turn the headlights on. Then for the heater, you have your blower motor speed switch here, so it's off now, and you have low and high. And on this side you have defrost and heat and hot and cold. So very simple heater system. You can see we've added a full complement of video gauges. And that includes a GPS calibrated speedometer. We have the fuel gauge, we have a water temp gauge and a voltage gauge. And then there's a hazard light switch right under the dash here. And right under here. And that's really it. There's no other switches or buttons to play with. It's pretty simple. There's some charging ports here. And there's actually there are heated seats. So the heated seat switches are right here on the center console. But the simplicity of the vehicle is really what, to me, enhances the driving experience, because you don't have a lot of distractions. It's really, you could just focus on the vehicle, and it's nice to just get back to basics. You have 4 wheels and a steering wheel and a shifter. And as long as you have been acquainted with the vehicle and the way it drives, it is an absolute beautiful driving experience. And it's the vehicle that most people just want to hop in and drive, even if they own the more kind of luxurious modern vehicles. The other thing that's really nice about the Defender is the upright seating position. So in most cars, you're sitting down in it. With the Defender, you're sitting like more on it. You're sitting up where you can see the corners of the hood. The driving position is fantastic. So the vehicle is in all-wheel drive all the time, but to get better traction off-road, what you'll want to do is use this shifter down here, and you'll want to lock the center diff lock. So to do that, you just move that over to this position here, and you also will want to go down into low range if you're in an off-road situation where you need to move really slow, and to do that, you go into this position here. You enjoyed going in. So I hope you enjoyed going for a drive in this Land Rover and checking out all the features that we've built into the restoration. I'm sure the new owner of this vehicle is going to be thrilled when she receives it. It's a vehicle that we built literally to last a lifetime, and it's a vehicle that will not go obsolete anytime soon. Every single aspect of this vehicle can be serviced by any normal mechanic. Anyone that's familiar with normal mechanical turbo diesels could take a look at this engine and know exactly what they're looking at. It has normal Bosch injection system, Bosch injectors, and there's no computers to speak of on this entire vehicle. So it's something that no matter where in the world you are with this vehicle, any normal diesel mechanic could take a look at this and fix it. So it's really a vehicle that will last a lifetime, will not be obsolete, will not require expensive dealer servicing, and I'm sure the new owner will enjoy this vehicle for years to come.